You're listening to Honey and Hustle, a video podcast that inspires the dreamers, creators, and hustlers to make a business from their passions. I'm Angela Hollowell, and I'm a visual storyteller based in Durham, North Carolina. I sit down with creative entrepreneurs, nonprofit founders, and small business owners as they share their stories, the lessons they've learned throughout their careers, and how they've worked to make a positive impact. Support for this episode of Honey and Hustle is brought to you by Manscaped, the leading men's hygiene brand. Manscaped just launched new products that you or a special man in your life will actually use, including their all-new ultra premium body wash and a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It's time to give yourself or the man in your life the gift of beautiful skin and hair this holiday season. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools like their recently launched 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. They sent me this trimmer to help me keep the mohawk nice and clean in any environment, as this trimmer reduces accidental nicks and dings. Luckily for me. They sent me their hygiene bundle in the mail, and this comes complete with their anti-chafing boxers that'll keep the fellas feeling fresh all season long. You could call this the perfect package, and you'd be right. Go to manscaped.com and use the code HIVE for 20% off and free shipping to give the gift of great hygiene. Once again, we'd like to thank Manscaped for supporting this episode of Honey and Hustle, so use the code HIVE at manscaped.com to get 20% off your order and free shipping and experience premium grooming. Thank you for joining me all the way from freaking Hillsborough, which is not very far at all.
Not at all. In fact, like I said, we lived in Durham up until, well, it's about a year and a half that we've lived here in this house.
Okay.
We lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, so a hub of everything business related for, well, I'm 40, like I mentioned, so about 30 years. My parents, well, born in New Jersey, so my parents lived their entire life up in New York, New Jersey, met on Wall Street, and we're just tired of being around a big city. Love it, and moved there, and that's where I've been my entire life. And we both just decided and looked at each other that A, we were done with teaching, and B, she's lived here. So there's the familiar, there's the catch. My wife lived here for about 8-10 years, Carrie, and then taught in Durham schools. So that was familiar to her. So it was familiar to me. We have friends that live here. And it was like, well, I've never lived anywhere except for Charlotte. Not that at least I can remember. I moved when I was like 5-6 years old from New Jersey. So it was like, if I'm gonna do this at some point in my life, it better be now, or I'm gonna regret it, and wish that we had. So that's where we started, and then we moved here with the intention of starting a family. And it has nothing against Charlotte. It's a beautiful city, and would tell everybody and anybody that considering moving there, absolutely. It was just, you need a change, you need to just, see what happens. And so here we are. We're looking for houses, and it was kind of like a broad spectrum of like, this area, and just lucked out and found this cute little, I'm gonna say cute because it's definitely needs updating, 1960s house in the middle of an historic district in Hillsborough, and couldn't be more grateful for it. And hopefully our little 14-month-old son agrees with us at the moment. But so yeah, that's what brought us close to you. It's a small world, right? How many people are doing the same thing we are and are right outside your door, right?
Yeah, exactly. But podcasting is growing, and the community is becoming more tight-knit. I feel like Twitter just makes the world feel so small.
It does, and it's in such a good way, and social media has a way to do that and a way not to do that. And for each community, it's probably something different, but these are the communities, small business and podcasting that I know, and even just health coaching, and that one just seems to work. It comes down to the conversation, like we were talking about, that I think it lends itself to more of a dialogue versus needing to show something creative to get attention. So yeah,
for sure. So you are podcasting now. You are the owner and founder of Veritas Fit.
Yeah.
But like you said, you started off in the classroom. So can you talk to me about how your classroom experience and your journey to the classroom has now lent itself to healthcare coaching and things like that?
So teaching for me, I'll give you like a quick how I got into that. My mom has been a teacher for about 30 years. In fact, everybody moved here to be closer to a grandson. Both sides of our families, and my wife's mom and my mom. More importantly, my mom moved as well with her teaching job. So we've had teaching in our family life for long as I can remember. And I swore I'd never be a teacher. So my mom, up the late hours of the night. And one year there was an opening at the school that I attended when I was younger. My brother attended and she taught at. And I said, well, sure. And I have a psychology degree, psychology master's. And so I was like, people are my thing. Kids got to work too. And they were middle school students. And so it's an age where it's like, it's like the worst time of your life, but also the best. And sarcasm runs rampant and all that kind of fun stuff. And so it was a conversation, and each kid has a story as well as I have a story. And it kind of just a natural fit when it came to the side of health. I've always been passionate about that, wife and I both, and we left to two different sectors when it comes to health. Her a little bit more extreme as an oncology nurse, but mine was how can I still support and help people, but not necessarily in a way that's eat this, work out this way, and do that, because to me that's fleeting. That changes with the day and night. And so as a health coach, that translates easily, because it's all about the mindset. It's all about what you're doing. It's all about how you're living, and there's a lot of puzzle pieces that go along with that, from family history to just your lifestyle. And that's the same way students were. There's a lot of different family backgrounds. There's a lot of different histories when it comes to just being in school systems. And so it's kind of an interesting fit, but it works because, unfortunately, whether we like to admit it or not, as an at least an adolescent, and adults are exactly the same. We just different mental states and different awareness of those states. And I even see it with our 14-month-old. I say it all the time, like out loud, that he may not be able to vocalize exactly what's going on, but he's got the same situation in life as a 13-year-old, and the same situation as his 40-year-old father. They're just different ways of expressing it and different awareness of it. So that's where the idea of Veritas Fit came from. So Veritas is Latin for truth, and it's a truth fit. And if we're being honest, that truth comes a lot deeper than just eating a kale smoothie and doing 10 push-ups. So
Yeah, for sure. That much I can definitely guarantee you. If I did 10 push-ups right now, not much in my life would change.
no, right? You'll feel great, but it's one of those things that it works well for me. It may not work well for you. And when I started it, that's one of the things that I knew I didn't want to do, was tell people how to work out. But I didn't have any background, so my certification started with a personal trainer, and progressed and developed into being a holistic health coach. But I worked in small clubs, and got my paid the dues to get to being able to do this on my own. But I hated it, because anytime you'd ask me a question about well, can I eat 10 oranges today? And I'm like, do you want to? I sure. I mean, it just baffles me. And then you'd set up a whole program for somebody. And it's like, well, I don't like doing pull-ups. Well, you know what? Me neither.
No.
But somebody said that you should be able to do those. So can you try? So you realize right away that people are like, they're wrapped in a whole different mindset about those things. And it's like, well, wait a minute. There's a bottom floor here that people are jumping over, because society says that you have to eat 10 oranges in a day and be able to do pull-ups, and that's how you'll be healthy. And it's not. I mean, that's taking out of the whole conversation about image.
Mhm.
So it was a struggle. I still struggle every day with running this business in that term. Could I have made a lot more money and been making more money by just telling people how to do that, and taking flashy pictures of me working out? Probably. But there's a difference between, is it about me or is it about the person coming to me? And I think that's ultimately with any business what you have to think of. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's just you just want to serve people coffee and make $10 off of it. So it's a tough fit. I won't tell you it's easy, but the personal side of it, the enjoyment of it, has really only come in the past year and a half, and that was because I realized that the message that I feel is important for my soul is what I want to share. And lo and behold, the more you relax with that, the more people go, you know what? I think so too. So yeah. Um,
Yeah. I think what you just touched on is so important. And I think what I have struggled with as a creator at some point, what people may be watching this are struggling with, which is like, how do you strike the balance between like giving people what they want or what they think they want as a solution to their problem, and also running a business and serving people in a way that feels true and authentic to you,
yeah.
right? Like people may want or gravitate towards TikToks and Reels, but and I make money doing that for people, but that doesn't feel true to me because
Yeah.
that's not what I'm about as a storyteller. So it's
Yeah.
like, how do I, I definitely hit that crosswords where it's like, okay, what do people want? What am I willing to give to make money? Because not
Yeah.
everything is worth what it takes to make money. And I
Yeah.
think too, that's like the other half of business. It's like there's a lot of ways to make quick money. There's a lot of ways you can run a business
Yeah.
and that has been profitable in the past and will be profitable in the future. But that doesn't mean that it's the best way for you to do it. And if you can't sleep at night after you made that money, then like,
You missed.
does it
Yeah.
even matter? You just like gave yourself another job that you don't want. Why would you do
Yeah.
that to yourself? Like that
And
doesn't
I
make
mean, and it happens so often. And, sometimes it's just, without you being aware of it. But I feel like, a lot of and, so I have to do so much research, just on many fronts just to make this all work. It's not even just, I mean, staying up on, the health end of it, but it's like the small business side of it. And early on, I think that's the stuff that really caught me because it's not that I'm, not savvy enough or educated enough to understand all that, but man, you get sucked in so quick to all the verbiage and who's this guy, but he's telling me that he can show me how to start a business and 10x my growth, and I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. And then so you get wrapped up on all the bells and whistles that you need to have, and you forget your goal. But nobody really is talking about um, making sure that you're aware of what your mission is, what you're passionate about, what's gonna, like you said, help you sleep at night and feel good about what you just gave people, or offered people service wise, even, not even just a product, but you get lost. And I think that's probably what, if I'm being real with myself, that's what caught me in the beginning. If for better or for worse, at least I learned that. But if there's anything I could tell, and I'm not the most successful one on the planet, but if there's anything I could tell somebody that's starting a business, it's to really sit down with the personal side of it. What you see to that. And people talk about setting goals and having a mission and a vision and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, how quickly can you get past that to get to, okay, are you going to have the right product? How are you going to sell that product? What is it going to look like? Do you have all the right social media captions and pictures for it? And it's like, hold on, go back a little bit here and really take a look at the why and the what, because that's the stuff that's going to ground you in the end. And the minute you get lost from that, it's hard to come back to it. It's hard to not rearrange the entire thing that you set up just to get back to that. And it's easy to do, and it's scary how many things. I mean, I get a message on my phone, daily from some direct message on Instagram that, hey, I can help you do this and check out this giveaway, and then you get a whole other bunch of it in your emails. It's like, I saw your account on Instagram. It looks like you're killing it. I'm like, you're not paying attention because I haven't used that account in a while or whatever it is, and it's like, man, like how easily somebody can just go, that sounds like a great offer. I'm struggling. I'm going to do that. And there's your mindset. And so that's why this whole health coaching thing business worked, because there's a piece of it there in small business. You feel like you're getting talked to about having this automatic reply and making sure that you say this and wait a minute, make sure that you posted this picture, but not only the right picture, make sure it has the right filter, hashtag, and the right time, or else you're not going to be successful. And it's like, oh, well, then I'm out. I don't know how to do anything. And it's like, wait a minute, you have a gift of whatever service, whatever product you're offering, and you forgot that because you got lost in the stuff that everybody told you that you needed, but you didn't.
Yeah, for sure. I think like I don't know, that just springboards into this whole conversation of
It
like
does.
entrepreneurship and what people think or how people define success nowadays too. Because part of it is, you know, being successful, so making money or finding something that works for you and growing exponentially, however that means to you.
Yeah.
Then the other half is like being at the forefront of saying like what works in order to grow and showcasing that and being that leader in your field, an innovator in terms of how you're using your business to connect with people and grow and make relationships and build
Yeah.
community rather than just keeping your head down and doing the work,
Yeah.
right? Because ultimately, what's going to guide that, what is successful for you and what works for you is your why. And
It's
staying
right.
true to that and knowing what parts of marketing or social media or tactics and stuff that fit into your overall strategy to reach that goal and to accomplish that mission of like what you set out to do
Yeah.
rather
100%.
than like doing it to showcase that you can do it or that you
Yeah.
did it first or that you did it better. um and that just, I feel like that just gets so many people caught up in like looking like you're
Yeah.
successful or
It
sounding
does.
like you're successful.
And I mean, you see it in all assets, right, or aspects, right? I mean, even just in the small little podcast community, it's like, here, let me show you how to write your Twitter bio, and then you may have spent 5 days to write this bio, and you thought it was great, and then somebody was like, hey, let me show you how to work it so that you can gain more listeners, and it's like that one key word, and you went, well, my bio sucks. I need to redo this, and it's like, no, 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 hold on. Maybe there's something still to tweak, sure, but maybe not. Maybe it's exactly who you are and who you feel. I mean, you can see it in so many people's captions, the images, the bios, all those little things. You can start to see, do you need that in there, or did you really need to share that? And I mean, for the way it translates for me into the health space is just the term, the hashtag, mental health matters. It drives me bananas because it's like, and I follow that hashtag on Instagram, just to see, like what's going on, and I check it every day on Twitter as well, just to see. And you can watch the disparity between the conversations, and sometimes it's there in Twitter, but not so much, compared to an Instagram, where it's like you've got somebody that's, I don't know, like half naked wearing a bikini, on the beach eating a pizza. And they're like, the caption has nothing to do with the picture for starters. And then number two, it's talking about like mental health matters. And sure, spending time getting away is that, but it's like the message got lost. But why did you put that there? And perhaps you have a valid, perfectly normal reason to have those hashtags being used. But a lot of times it's there because somebody told you that using that particular tag, and then you could stick any tag in there, using that particular tag or that particular wording is what's going to get you the attention. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what attention were we looking for? There's two types. And certainly a lesson that I've learned time and time again, less and less as I've gotten older. But there's positive attention and there's negative attention, and the positive one is going to feed your soul, feed your mind, feed your your inner happiness. And the negative tension most of the time is just, it's instantly gratifying, but it could get you in serious trouble. It could also just have you lose your way. And that happens with, I mean, we could talk about not just hashtags, like we said. You could talk about the bio descriptions, you could talk about the way you set up your website. You could insert anything, and people change because they feel they have to, because somebody that seemed important, that has tens of thousands of followers, but really just an armchair expert is telling you that, hey, this is a good idea. And it's like, they may have a great idea, but do you have your own too? And the two of them can line up, and you could still be successful. You may not be able to 10x your growth, but or whatever that is. I feel like that buzzword's gone. I'm aging quick at that one. I feel like I don't hear that as much, but it's like, for a while there, it was like, that's all you heard. I'm like, that sounds great. I've got 100 followers, so that's great. Or is that money? I don't know. I don't know what growth we talk about here, you know? So it's like, but
Yeah.
you can see it. I mean, you could, yeah, I mean, I don't want to call it necessarily like the weaker mind. That's a like a strong word, but you know what I mean? Like it's the person who's not strong-willed, I guess maybe that's the best way to put it. You know, it looks at that and goes, "Oh man, I suck. I have to do this all over again. I have to just scratch the past month of work and just start over." And it's like, no, you can still see that and take that information and go, what can I use? And so there's where I think my thought when I began was like, how can I do what they're doing for free? Because a lot of times you see that and it's like, oh, you want to pay $900 a month for that service? Okay, no, that's not ever going to happen. Even if I was making $900 a month, so it started with that frame of mind, and now it's progressed to, okay, that's a cool idea. I like that use. Let's bookmark that for a second, and I'm going to go back and use that as a to-do list. And then I start to look at it, and I'm like, well, that's cool, but that doesn't even. Why would I even need that? Like I can't even figure out how to use that, or it becomes so complex that I'm like, no, I don't. That's a waste of my time. To try and implement that for now. And so maybe it stays on the back burner. Maybe it's like, okay, one day I'm gonna come back to that because I can see the use of that. Or you realize like, hey, I, that no, my bio is fine, or no, my website functions properly. Like now it's getting cluttered, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I've done it numerous times where I'm like, the website like felt good, and then I'm like, I personally went back through it and went, nope, that's clunky. Or my lovely teacher of a mom who loves to edit stuff goes, son, what are you trying to say here? And I'm like, well, but it's, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
That's so confusing. So it's like, I came to that realization, but you can also come to that realization because somebody told you outside or you read something. And that's a good thing, but never just change something or do something for your business or yourself because that's the trend. So it's happens a lot and probably more than it should these days.
Yeah. I think in podcasting and business and social media strategy, which there seem to be a lot of experts in social media strategy
Yeah.
nowadays, I think part of the conversation that has been missing that you touched on is like there's a difference between growth due to negative attention and
Mhm.
growth due to positive attention. And a lot of times, growth due to positive attention is slow
Yeah.
and it's a lot
It's not
smaller.
fun. Yeah.
But, what is it worth to you at the end of the day to have a
Yeah.
small but engaged community who's truly interested in what you do and what you're talking about and the energy that you put out into the world versus this massive following of people who, don't really care about,
They
let's say,
don't.
mental health. For example, that hashtag that you put in your photo. And then when you want to start over and say, hey, I want to cater to this group of people because this is what I care about, this is who I want to serve. And now you just have this huge following of people who aren't interested, who are disengaged,
Yeah.
who are, checking out by the minute, who aren't going to, buy anything from you. I think there was like this big scandal that happened. I would say scandal. I don't know if that's the right word, but there was this girl, she had like over a million Instagram followers, and she put out her own line of t-shirts and nobody bought anything. And so it's
I
like
believe that.
it's like you have this huge following of people who like
Yeah.
are not willing to support you monetarily. So like what if you truly gained at the end of the day? Because
Nothing.
$1 million on Instagram or 1 million followers on Instagram means nothing if you don't have
Nothing.
people who actually care about like
Yeah.
you and the work that you do. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like it was that wake up call for her. She was like super distraught about it. She's like, I can't believe this just happened.
Yeah.
And she, a lot of people too confuse having a strong personal brand, whether you're an influencer or just somebody who's out on social media, and being a strong business mind.
Hmm.
And so it's like, there are people who are strong business minds with very small accounts, very small followers who are making infinitely more than the influencer with
Yeah.
1 million followers and
And
know how to
sleeping
talk to
better
their
too, I'm
audience.
sure.
Yeah, know how to talk to their audience, know how
Hmm.
to build community, know how to meet the needs of people. And then you have people who have gained on those people. They know how to get likes, they know how to get attention, they know how to get engagement
Yeah.
per se, but can't convert these content consumers to like actual customers.
Yeah.
And so that's just like this interesting thing about hashtags and connectivity. Like, yeah, you can make the world feel so, so small. Twitter, Instagram, all these platforms can make you feel so connected to these people. but what does it mean if you can't get them to act offline, if you can't get them to
Yeah.
really engage and think about their lifestyle and, how your work is doing fits into that and meets a need. So,
Yeah. I mean, and they're, I mean, you're right. I mean, those are two different skill sets. And I don't think you could sit here, or maybe somebody can, have the argument that one is more valuable than the other. I think they're both needed. If you ask me, I'm not the necessarily like the most business savvy. I understand enough to not be sold a unicorn. But the skill set of having that conversation, to me, that's the more valuable one. I'm not going to say that it's the more like necessary one, but a lot of times, I mean, I'm sure you get 1,001 messages too that are like, hey, I'm giving away $15,000, or hey, I follow this account, and that's gross. It's like, it feels slimy, like having that conversation end up in your inbox, let alone if somebody came up in the street, and they're not going to do that to you. I mean, if you really stop back and then think about what you're saying or what you're sharing with people, would you say that to somebody in person? And there are certainly people that are salesmen, and that's what I mean, they're good at it. They certainly make money at it, but they may not be the best conversationalists. They know to say the right words. I mean, that takes a whole psychological understanding too. But to me, the dialogue, the conversation, like you said, I mean, the girl that nobody bought anything, it's because how were you? I mean, I don't know the person, I don't know what they were sharing, but I could kind of gander a guess there that they were probably sharing pictures that had nothing to do with it, and all of a sudden it's like they had a personal epiphany, but everybody wasn't living with them, to see that epiphany happen, that like, hey, I want to do this, this is what I'm passionate about. And nobody wanted that. They were there for a totally different reason. And so that's why, you go back to what we were talking about, that if you don't understand why you're getting into it, number one, right, I mean, you're going to have people that are confused as to, hold on, like, we were just talking about selling pineapples, and now you want to buy t-shirts from me? Like, I was here for the pineapples, and you can't do that necessarily. I mean, you can certainly make 1,001 profiles and sell whatever you want across the board, but if you have something that you started, that's where it needs to be. And people jump to, oh, I need to get on social media, I need to have this account and that account. No, you don't. I mean, you have to do the ones that are right for you, that do the homework for it. But we're just so, I need to go, and I need to rush, I need to get this started, I need to get this off the ground now. And no, you don't. And I think that's hard for people to stop and think about, because we need that now. And then, a lot of the people giving that information, sometimes they share with you and sometimes they don't, that, yeah, they may have quit their job and, done the scary thing and started something on their own. But the puzzle piece that they're not giving you is the fact that that job that they left was some six-figure job. So they can afford to jump off the cliff, hoping that their wax wings don't burn up in the sun, and for probably 99% of the population that's starting a business, we don't have that, and but we're listening to those people that do have that. And so we jump too. And some of us learn to fly. Some of us hope that it's the largest cliff ever, and takes years to figure out. And some of us, it doesn't, and we stop and we quit for good reasons, whether we realize that, hey, this really isn't what I want to do. I'm glad I tried, but I'm not a baseball bat salesman, but the long game is what you really have to be focused on. And it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of dark, cloudy, rainy, sucky days, to find your community, not even just a niche, just your community that's going to listen and say, hey, I like what you're doing. And that's it. And maybe all you get in a week, in a month, that somebody just says, hey, I love what you're sharing, this is valuable to the world. And that, starts to snowball and become something larger, and really becomes more successful. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I started this business of health coaching, Veritas Fit, 5 years ago this year. But it took me four of those to start a podcast, even though I knew I'd like to start one eventually, but I had no idea what I was going to talk about. And I wasn't going to start something just to jabber. I like listening to me talk, but other people might not. So it took a long time to do that. And it's only within the past probably year and a half have I really figured out that this is the message, and that's where it's going to be said, and this is how it's going to be said. And I don't care if I make, 0 reels in a day, or ever, or ever jump on TikTok or anything. This is where I feel comfortable, and this is how I'm going to say it. And I think that's important to think of when it comes to running a business or running anything. That where do you stand? Because a lot of times, you realize you're not standing on a foundation that's yours. So somebody's going to kick you off, or it's not sturdy like whatsoever. I mean, that's probably the most valuable bit that I've ever given myself. But that came from teaching too. I can remember my mom on day one look at me dead in the eye, and I'm sure she was ecstatic that I was going to be teaching. In fact, the first probably 3 years, 2 3 years, I was one of her assistants, which was beautiful. We absolutely, appreciate each other's conversations and respect the fact that we both have the same personalities when it comes to leadership. But even she looked at me and said that, you've got a year, and within this year is when you'll figure out whether you want to do this or not, for a while. But it's going to take probably 5 years before you really get into a groove of it. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to be here at all. This kid's annoying. But she's right. I mean, within that year, I knew like this is what I want to do. And 5 years in was when I began, certification programs, for teaching. That's when I, eventually went away to be trained specifically. And so we were Montessori teachers. That's where I met my wife on one of those certification programs. That's where I began to get my master's. So it all happened within that 5, maybe 6 year range. And so it translates perfectly into now. I mean, the first year of running a business was like, okay, this is fun. Like I can design this. I have enjoyed doing this. I don't know how to do that, but can you show me? And then, at the same time, I'm learning how to be a personal trainer. It's like, wow, this is awesome. Like, and it slowly progressed to like, oh, this is not as enjoyable. It's a lot of work. But here I am 5 years, and it's like, maybe in the same, if you looked at it on a fiscal calendar, maybe not your ideal setting, but it's certainly, I know this is what I want to do. This is what I enjoy doing, and I see the value in what it's bringing others now. And so they work simultaneously. That the same message was clear. In fact, she reminded me of that a couple months ago. That here you are now. Now's the time to make some real money, and I believe her, not because she's my mom, but because I saw it happen. Both internally and externally. Thankfully, I have a wife that supports it too, and people don't necessarily have that either. They don't have somebody that supports them. They have somebody that questions them and doesn't understand what this all means. As I can certainly attest to that too. I have a mom that constantly is looking at me. That I sent her something the other day as far as what is it, Spotify like shared with you for podcasters, and she's like, well, that's great. She's like, you have 8 listeners or whatever it was, that like 8 or 10 listeners that like listen to you more than anybody else. She's like, you should somehow figure out how to talk to those 8 people and get them to listen to more. I'm like, I don't know if that's how that works, mom. I don't know if I have that information, but you're right. Or things like that. And or she joked and said that at least one of those isn't necessarily your mom all the time, and it's true. But at the same time, it's like that's the reality. A lot of times it's just your family and friends, but that's how it starts. And we forget that, or we realize it, or we negate it, that no, I need that many other followers. What are you talking to me about? No, I don't care that you've been my best friend for 20 years. You don't know what it's like to run a business, dude. Get out of here. But they do. They at least know who you are, and can help you stay grounded. And that's certainly something that I'm thankful for, because I don't think I'd be sitting here talking to you, if that weren't the case. Because there's not just a cheerleader, but it's like sense of realism that comes in. If you don't have somebody in your life, like my wife, at least, mom certainly is a same, but my wife is the one that looks at you and goes, that just doesn't sound, that sounds stupid. And sometimes in that strong word, sometimes not, but it's like, it's gotten to the point after we've been with each other for almost 8 years, married for three, but um, it's gotten to the point that I won't even get it out of my mouth. I'll be thinking about having to tell her my idea. And I'm like, "Ugh, she's going to think I'm an idiot." And so the idea just goes, I'm like, gone. And so it's like, okay, at least I didn't have to waste my time or somebody else's to think about that. But you need somebody like that too. And it doesn't come externally. It doesn't come from the guy that's telling you how to sell and how to market and how to have the right filter or any of that stuff. It comes right inside your circle, to start with.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think like sometimes too, with your mom, with your spouse, with your whoever that's in your
Whoever.
circle, it takes time for them to like come
Oh,
around too, especially when you're like, okay, I want to do this as more than, a hobby. I want to
yeah,
make money doing this. I want to pursue this full time. That could be a scary thing, right? Because
sure.
first thing people are going to say, or at least the first questions I got were, okay, how are you going to afford insurance? What about your
Yeah.
retirement? What about just
How do you
money
make
for
money
bills?
doing
Yeah, like,
that?
how do you make this sustainable? So I think like there's so many questions, and I'm not mad at the questions because it
No,
is good for people to again like think critically. Like
sure.
I am a single woman, no kids. Like my time is not the same as somebody who is married with a
Yeah,
14-month-year-old but my income and like flexibility is not the same because you have a
yeah,
partner that's like helping you and stuff. So, or somebody who left a six-figure job and was like, yep, this is what I want to do, who's been saving up money and maybe even has parents that are willing to help them out if they need it. Like,
yeah,
your income and your risk level is not the same. Your ability to output certain things and take certain risk is not the same. So, it really can be like your structure of your support system has
sure.
to be the right fit as well, because it's not just about money.
Yeah.
It's
And
about,
I mean, go ahead. Yeah,
yeah, I was about to say it's about staying power. It's like who
yeah,
can, 'cause you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have people who are willing to be honest with you and tell you, like, hey, that's not a great idea. Hey, this messaging isn't clear. Like, hey, if I was to see you on the street, I wouldn't know what to buy from you or something
yeah,
like that. People who are honest with you. And you can spend all the money in the world trying to throw it at the problem that you think exists
yeah,
in your business, but it's not going to solve anything.
yeah. And that's part of being, maybe the blessing of being a teacher. We left different schools, wife and I taught, but she was just ready to do something else. And nursing was already calling her. Me, yeah, the pressure of just negative, people within the school system was just too much and way too much. So we left for different reasons, but our mindsets were just the same. That we realized we were going to lose every bit of what we appreciate, about it. And so I probably walked away, at least retaining that and being able to take that with me now, to have that. I have a super critical mom, but I have a super critical mom because she's a teacher, she's an educator of all different ages, and now an administrator. So she has to pass that on effectively to other people. And so I just was kind of the byproduct, by choice, I guess, to have that happen. But I at least have an accepting personality when it comes to hearing that. Am I stubborn? Am I a pain in the butt, to anybody that might, look at what I've done and criticize it? Sure. Yeah, I think that's just kind of natural because if you put your heart and soul into it, and really felt good about it, yeah, it's gonna sting a little bit. But the next day, the next page in that story is the important part. You can make the 100 mistakes in a day, large and catastrophic or small. It's what you do afterward. That's who you are as a human being. And I think that says a lot for running a business, running a life, is that how do you take that criticism? And if somebody tells you, hey, even if it's just the universe slapping you in the face, did you listen? And did you go, all right, all right, all right, all right, I know what lesson you're trying to teach me. Give me a chance. I'm gonna figure it out. Or did you go, no, like, I don't care what you're telling me. I'm gonna keep going that direction. And that's probably a direction that's gonna have you hit a wall and be the worst experience you've ever had and possibly never turn back from. And I think that's something valuable, skill wise, that can be taught. I think it's a little bit deeper and more refined if it comes just natural, just who you are. But certainly we could all use the skill set of being able to look at what we've done work wise and say, okay, you're right. This isn't working, and I need to refine it. Doesn't need to change, doesn't need to get rid of it, doesn't need to completely throw it, out the window and doubt yourself, but take out a couple words right there, and then you're good. Or, are you really aware of what this service, this product is going to do? Oh, you're right. Like you said, like you had no idea the demographics that you were pitching to, and that could be a bad thing because it's like, oh crap, like I'm selling to some, I forget who it is now. I think it was like some coffee company, and somehow their logo there, and they're like veterans or something like that. Shoot, it's gonna drive me bananas now. But there was some coffee company that within the midst of like all the January 6th, like, protests and rallies and riots, that their name became synonymous with everything because people were wearing it and people were using it. And yes, they believe in, all these other things that, I wouldn't say normal, but maybe more acceptable. But the owners, the CEOs, and they're successful. I mean, they were fine without all this, but so it had nothing to do with that. It was just they were all of a sudden under fire because what they were pitching, what they were saying, what they thought was a whole different message, other people picked up on it way different. That's right. Yeah, it's Black Rifle Company. And and I don't know the larger message, but maybe they did have some purpose behind it. But at least the message that I was reading, the things that I saw, it was like, oh gosh, like that's not what we meant. Yes, we believe in veterans' rights and owning guns, but not like this. Like, hold on a second, we're not that. And so that you could have done all the homework in the world and still had that happen to your business. Because you never know. But it's something to look at and go. And I think that's what they did. They kind of went step back, and if you're big like that, certainly have to have a conversation out loud in public. But as a person, if that happens to you, on even a small scale, where someone's like, what you said is probably hitting this company or this demographic. Did that what you meant? Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Okay, cool. Or, oh gosh, so hold on, what am I saying here? Oh, that wording right there, or that video, or that picture, or that hashtag. I've certainly been the victim of that. I think it was some silly one, like, um, Diet Club or something like that. It's something simple, and it was just in there because I was talking about something, related to that. And I had someone like caption it or like, comment under the picture. It was very friendly. I think it was like a picture of like a cartoon like version of like a fat Batman. And I wasn't saying anything about, I mean, everything about it was like, around him was like saying like, these choices about lack of sleep and water and, mindset and all that kind of stuff. And somebody picked up on that tag and went, this is very discriminatory, and you should not be talking negative about people that are overweight and obese. And I'm like, well, hold on. And I mean, it took me a couple days, and I'm like, that's it. Like, that's the tag that this person, because they had posts, and I'm like, that's where it came from. Okay, not doing that again. And that's a small thing, but it makes you pause, and you should always take a moment to say, look at the people that are, whether you know them or there's somebody leaving a random comment that, what are they saying? And if it's something that, nope, sorry, doesn't make sense, but at least pause to look at how they're portraying, look at what that you're portraying that they might be picking up on, because you never know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great note to end on, just to give people some pause and to think
Yeah,
about what messages am I truly putting out into the world versus what I think I'm putting out. Like, because
yeah,
those could be definitely two different things, and something that you do kind of need to talk to people about and engage in some social listening and really be critical about when you
yeah,
ask for feedback. You can make your questions more specific.
yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime. This was a pleasure to have these conversations. I mean, I don't get to have a lot of them with other people other than outside my circle. Sometimes it's just talking to a 14-month-old that just kind of looks at me and just nods his head every time. but it's always good to have conversations, outside of your community, within your community, just to hear some other perspective that you never know, what you're going to gain from it. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.